Hi all, welcome to Topic 3, Lecture 2, Part 5. In this session we're going to look at resistance to change. To understand a little bit more about resistance to change, we need to understand, the likely percentage split of people who will have which particular reaction in a change situation. Firstly, we're going to have a look at advocates. People who champion and lead change are about 10%, so 1 in 10. People who support change, so they're not quite as interested in change as those who are leading it, will be another 10%, so another 1 in 10. People who will actively resist, so actively drag their heels, are 20%, 2 in 10. And those who will sit on the fence are about 60%. So just be aware of those percentage splits. You're going to end up with one person in every 10 who will be completely for it, one that's kind of sort of for it, 6 who don't really care either way, and 2 who are actively dragging the chain. So you're going to have fewer for than against, usually. So there's a couple of competing hypotheses that we should be aware of as well. One is that change makes people more vulnerable, that it actually leaves, that too much change leaves people less resilient and more vulnerable to the adverse effects from change after change after change. Basically, it creates prolonged stress, and there's a failure to completely resolve the emotional trauma from earlier change events. For example, losing 2 jobs in 5 years as a result of downsizing. I actually dealt with a client who had who'd been made redundant 5 times. This person had lost their jobs, I think, within about 4 years as well, and started to think it was more about them than about the economy. The alternative hypothesis is that experiencing traumatic events will inoculate people, so basically leave them better prepared to change again without such an intense or prolonged period of adjustment. So having survived the loss of 2 jobs in 5 years, then somebody might be more confident about taking on more risky, less secure jobs in the future because they're more confident of their ability to obtain later work. I guess the confident hypothesis is probably more the kind of professional person who has plenty of training. The vulnerable person is probably the contingent workforce at the bottom end, at the less skilled end of the market. So where we have resistance to change, basically a lack of trust, that is the first one, where we distrust the people who propose it, and that can magnify other sources of resistance. Where we think change is unnecessary, that everything's been successful in the past, there's no clear evidence of a serious problem that requires a major change. Belief that change isn't feasible, because proposed change may be unlikely to succeed or may have ignored a major roadblock. Where there's an economic threat, because that might have people individually lose income benefits or job security. Where there's a very high cost to the change, and the cost may be seen to outweigh the benefits. Where there's a great fear of personal failure, whether it makes expertise obsolete or requires new ways of doing work. Where there's a loss of status or power of key players within the organisation. Where there's a threat to the values or ideals of the organisation, that's a key one, where things generally don't fly. Or where there's resentment, or things are being seen as interference from an outside source, and because people don't want to be controlled by others. All very difficult things to try and deal with change.